Good
Perfect.
afternoon, and welcome to You and Your Business with me, Alec, on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Each week, I invite an expert from the world of business to share their knowledge, insights, and tips to help you with your business challenges. If there's a topic you would like covered, or if you feel you can make a contribution, please email me at yourbusiness@dublincityfm.ie, and perhaps we'll be having a chat here one day soon. This is the second part of a two-part show with Johnny Beirne, who is an expert in helping other experts, entrepreneurs, and educators create online courses of real value. And I was so intrigued by what he had to say and the value that he can actually deliver to our audience. I thought, let's follow this up and take it to its natural conclusion. So we will be talking about just from a simple Zoom all the way up to passive income from online courses. I'm delighted to welcome Johnny Beirne to the You and Your Business studio. Hey, Johnny.
Alec, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and great to see you again.
Yeah, no, it's great. I was fascinated from our first interview, which took place last week. And I just thought we must follow this up because there are so many people out there who are struggling with the new world in which we're about to enter into. I mean, it's been talked about for the last 2 years and many people have embraced it, but let's just take it from its most basic. I think etiquette and all that around Zoom, a lot of people don't understand just the basics. Now, we're not going to go into it in detail, but give us some broad strokes about engaging with Zoom and how that could be better for many people.
Sure, Alec. Yeah. So I suppose the fundamental thing that I like to remind people of, if they can at all to bear this in mind, is to almost, if you can, ignore the medium and to basically go back to the fundamentals that you would have been using offline. In other words, to conduct yourself in a professional manner, to talk clearly, of course, and to show up online in the same way you would show off, or show up, I should say, offline.
Yeah.
So what happens is, and I've done this in training courses over the years, I ask somebody to introduce themselves and they quite easily introduce themselves. And then I take out my phone and I hit record and I say, I'm just going to video that. Do you mind do you mind saying that again? And suddenly the body language, they're conscious of their hair or lack thereof. In my case, they stand up or they sit up differently and so on. So the machine, if you like, the technology, because most people, unless they're in the world of TV, for example, or being on camera regularly, most people are still very uncomfortable with being on camera. And what I would invite them to do is just, if they can at all, to focus on the viewer, focus on the audience, if it's an individual that they're meeting, and take the attention off themselves. And you would know that yourself, Alec, of course, as a great professional and public speaker, is it's not about you, it's about the audience. And if you can take some of those fundamentals, and of course, practice is a key part as well.
Yes, of course.
And then ideally, to set yourself up in a way that if you look professional, it kind of gives you, well, not kind of, it gives you confidence. It's like putting on your favorite suit or your favorite dress or your favorite top or whatever, that one that people say, oh, you look great. And you know yourself, without obviously having a massive ego, you know yourself, you feel it's your power suit or your power outfit. So if you dress yourself up for success, for your meetings and for your presentations, that will help as well. And then we can get into lighting and audio and, you know, the importance of lighting as well, the importance if standing is an option to stand up as well. So those couple of basics can actually make a huge difference. And we can get into the more, as I say, the more technical stuff as well, and a few tips around that.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm coming across Zoom meetings on a regular basis, and I think it was quite understandable in the early days that people were operating from their kitchens and their bathrooms and wherever else, any room they could find. And it was acceptable for the audience that, okay, the background, we'll live with it because of the challenges of COVID. But we've moved into a new world now where professionalism, as you've identified, is so important. So could you just talk about the basics of what people could get? And I know we're going to publish a list attached to this radio interview of equipment, but let's just talk about the basics you would expect somebody to have if they're going to be conducting Zoom meetings.
Sure, and you're absolutely right on that point. People were a little bit more forgiving in the first couple of weeks of COVID. The poor person has to work from home, and you know, and they would accept the bathrobe hanging on the door, etc. But very quickly, those who took action very quickly and those who had been doing it pre-COVID were very professional. And then people were doing so many Zoom meetings and other online meetings, they started to see very quickly what good and great looks like. So the forgiveness disappeared pretty quickly, if it existed for some people at all. So the basics, for what I break them down into, is environment, equipment, and engagement. So the
Right.
three E's, if you like. The environment is as much for yourself really as for your audience. So what I say to people is, in order to be set up for success, you must have the right setup for success. So the first thing is a comfortable environment. Whatever you can do to give yourself adequate space in an environment, and when I say environment, your surroundings. So if you're working in the bedroom, then even consciously think about that corner of the bedroom is my new office.
Right.
Okay, so the bed is for sleeping and the desk. So when I get up out of that chair, or if I'm standing, if I walk away from that workstation, that desk, that area, I'm not working. And when I go to that area, I'm working. So ideally, make it comfortable, make it enjoyable, make it effortless. And then it's really, really important in terms of presenting yourself on screen, because that's what we're talking about, is light and light on your face. Okay.
Right.
Not to be relying on daylight, because you never know when the clouds are going to come, or indeed in our case, when the sun is going to come out. And even within seconds, obviously, as we know in Ireland, your whole image can change in a matter of seconds if you're using daylight. So I would encourage people to get 2 LED lights. There'll be options will be included in the list that we can provide, and to attach them to your table, particularly if you're using a sit-standing desk, which I believe everybody should use if standing is an option, because sitting is the new smoking. So, stand when you can, and stand and deliver. So attach those to your desk, one left, one right, at 45-degree angles or thereabout, to light up your beautiful face so that you can be seen clearly. And in fact, if you're not that confident on camera, those lights that make you look clearer, you kind of say to yourself, actually, I don't look too bad now that I'm a bit clearer. We joke about, in my workshops, I say, don't look like somebody in a witness protection program that you would see on Prime Time or Crime Line or some of these shows, where you can barely make out the face. The voice is so distorted you wouldn't recognize the person, which is the intention in that case. So don't look like you're in a witness protection program. Light up your face with a couple of LED lights that aren't too harsh on the eyes if you're going to use them for long periods, and attach them ideally to your desk. Attaching them to the desk or putting them on the desk just avoids the need for tripods. And I know, I've often come in, before my coffee on a Monday morning or Tuesday morning, and next thing I just trip across the tripod or whatever. So for health and safety reasons, and, I'm a bit anal about keeping the workspace tidy, attach them to your desk, and we'll include links to the polls that you can do that with, so to avoid tripods. Then the next thing then is a good camera, Sorry, Alec, yeah?
Yeah, no, I think you're dead right there that, again, if you were to think of in an office environment, you would invest a small amount of money, and it is a small amount, to bring you up to a level of professionalism. So why wouldn't you have it in your own office at home?
Exactly, yeah. And then the next one then is a camera. So you can start with a decent webcam. One of the entry-level go-to webcams, and it has been for years, is the Logitech C920. It served me well for years. It's about €90. The next level up then, I would suggest, if budget allows, is the Elgato face cam. It's about €200. You'll get it direct from Elgato. There's no duty because it's coming from within Europe. It comes from the Netherlands. They also have a US base as well. That's about €200, and it's got a Sony sensor in it. It's a dramatic increase in quality, and it's still a webcam. And then the third option then, if budget allows, is to move into what I call a real camera, a DSLR or mirrorless camera. I use the Sony a5100. Again, it's one of the go-to cameras for the last number of years. If you can pick it up secondhand, great. And if not, the new one that everybody's raving about that I'll eventually get is the Sony ZV-E10. And that will dramatically increase two things. Number one, the quality of your production. And number two, if you are going to use a green screen, which we can talk about, it makes it a lot easier to get it right and not be fuzzy around the ears and fuzzy around the hairline and shoulders if you are using a green screen. So that
All
would be
right.
the options in cameras. Yeah.
So I suppose, okay, for the basic person who's operating from home in an office, I mean, I use a MacBook Air, so I think the camera is of a reasonable quality.
Mm.
So if you have that, that's fine. You may need the C920, which again will just elevate you to another level. And also, as you said, identify a green screen and just have the basic background like your name down at the bottom as we have here. Simple things like that that make a huge
Yeah,
difference.
absolutely. The challenge with laptop or built-in cameras is getting them to eye level, which is a critical piece in your delivery. You know, we in the offline world, we like to make eye contact when we're having a conversation. So it's very disengaging when we're not doing that online. And that's why
True.
it's really, really important to have the camera at eye level. So if you are going to use a laptop, bring it up to eye level. You could use a breakfast in bed tray.
Yeah.
You could use a standing desk or get a plug-in USB camera because it's going to have a cable and that gives you more flexibility with eye level. Yeah.
All right. So that's the most basic sort of interaction people are having, sort of Zoom meetings on a regular basis. In the new
Mm,
world, I presume that that will always be part of what we do now. But the
sure.
next level, if we kind of ramp it up to the next level, people are now making more and more presentations from their home. So you've
Mm.
identified some cameras. So can we talk about that and maybe how people can ramp up just a bit more here?
Yeah, so the DSLR mirrorless camera, as I say, takes it to a whole new level. Get it at eye level, so that you're making eye contact. And when you are presenting, I know we like to look down at the faces if we're presenting to a group to check in, to get feedback from their body language, etc. But I would remind people to try and practice making their default position for their eyes down the lens. It's okay to look away now and again, but the default for people tends to be looking down at the faces.
Yes, of course. It's
So
a natural
what I'm
thing to do.
suggesting is the default would be down the lens. And just briefly, so we've lights, camera, and sound, and the microphone is really, really important as well. So get a quality microphone because whatever about the picture, people will not put up with poor quality audio. The
Sure.
example I use, if you're on a phone call and you're in bad service or bad coverage and you're breaking up, the other person is going, I'll call you back, you're breaking up, I can't hear you. And it's very frustrating for both people. So it's the same online. Don't be kind of metaphorically or otherwise breaking up in terms of your audio. And then in terms of working from home or office studio or home studio, and I use the word studio loosely there because we're not
Yeah.
talking about a huge budget. We're not talking about it being a commercial production studio where you can get into the photography and videographer business. We're just talking about improving your own production. So a key thing for me, particularly working from home, to give you more flexibility with your background is a green screen. And I use the Elgato green screen. I have two of them. I have the pull down version, which you can mount to the ceiling or wall, or the pull up version, which is like a exhibition stand without the pole. So when you pull it up, it stays up and it goes back into its case. It's €149 and you can slide it under the bed or slide it behind the couch, but it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of your background. And if you're presenting, particularly using slides, for example, you can become one with the presentation, so to speak, where you're actually part of the slides, which is almost similar to offline, where you'd be at the top of the room on front of a big screen and projector. You kind of become part of the presentation. You can do that quite efficiently and effectively and professionally with a pull-up green screen.
And if you're just joining me now, my guest today is Johnny Beirne, and we're talking about the importance of, I suppose, the new world and how you're going to be seen online and how to make it a much better experience for those that are out there and also to look more professional. You were just talking about green screens, and that's fantastic. I use one myself all the time. And again, my studio is a very small space, but again, I think it gives the air of professionalism. We were just looking at making presentations. Let's move this on a notch to people who are running workshops, and what would you suggest that would make a significant difference to them?
Yeah, so in terms of workshops, and we talk about environment, we talked about equipment, and we talked about engagement. And they're the three pieces: your own environment, the right equipment, and engagement is what I believe you're referring to there, Alec, in terms of making the experience for your audience as offline, if you like, as possible when you're online. And by that, I mean, when you set up your own environment, for example, I use a training room image when I'm training, and I use different images for different presentations and so on. And that environment that I show up in kind of translates then for the audience.
Right.
So it reminds me that I'm giving a course, so to speak,
Yeah.
the image. So the environment will come across, and that plays a key role in the engagement. The other thing that I would suggest is pattern interrupt. And what I mean by that, if you can use props, for example, so I, for example, use a jigsaw analogy for creating online courses, that would be one of my props. If you can use a digital whiteboard and stylus, which is quite popular, or if you can, move yourself within the presentation to be part of the presentation. So for example, if I switch to this example here of showing the importance of having your camera at eye level, I can switch from PowerPoint to being part of the presentation. So
Right.
pattern interrupt is important, because we have to remember that if we're delivering a course and people are at their kitchen table, or they're in a hammock in the back garden on a laptop, or they're commuting, or they're wherever, they're not getting the energy from the room that they would in an offline environment. And energy is infectious, and there's other things going on to keep people's attention. So we have to give and deliver with a little bit of extra energy and smiles to compensate for the lack of energy in the room, because chances are, in most cases, they're doing or watching the material, the course, the workshop, the training, the webinar, whatever it might be, they're watching it on their own. So we need to compensate for that lack of energy. So pattern interrupt, props, things that are just going to add that little bit of tactile tangibility to a 2D, almost 1D, 2D type of presentation. And there are a couple of things that have really worked for me. Giving people a chance to take a minute or two to do an exercise. If there's a group and you're using Zoom or other platforms, breakout rooms as well. So, something to, if you like, avoid the monotony of a talking head or death by PowerPoint. To avoid all of those things, we should do it offline. We should do it even more, and we can do it better online with the tools that we have at our disposal.
What do you think are the barriers for people? Because we don't see as many people engaging with turning these into a much more professional setting. Is it just lack of knowledge, or just not bothering?
Yeah, I think it's both, to be honest. I kind of break it up into kind of three main categories of what I have noticed over the last 2 years of literally training hundreds of people. Number one, won't bother. COVID will go away. We'll soon be back in the classroom. We'll soon be back in the hotel rooms. We'll soon be back in the conference centers, and I'll sit it out until COVID goes away. And, thankfully, things have well improved in terms of COVID. But I think in general, the audiences, while, I love the physical, as you do yourself, Alec,
Sure.
in the professional speaking world. And I think people will go back, but there's a huge opportunity to take this on and to present internationally online in addition to offline. So that would be people not bothering. The second category then is, people thinking it's very expensive and it's very technical. And while I'd love to do it, I just don't have the time, the energy, the budget. It's not worth the effort. And what we're discussing here is, and with the studio list of equipment, it's not expensive. You're talking in the low hundreds to transform how you're going to show up. And then if you move towards a different camera, or you move towards a green screen, you can take things to another level. And the third category is people gave it a go and they didn't really get the right advice in terms of equipment, or they didn't take the time to do an hour or two of a course. So they gave it a go with fair play. It didn't work, and they say, I knew it all along. It doesn't work. It's too complicated or whatever. They just didn't take the time. So there we kind of, I think the main reasons why people, they don't bother because it's going to go away, or they, they turn on the camera and they think, sure, it's good enough. And then the third one then is they gave it a go and it didn't work out, so they gave up. So.
And if you're just joining us now, my guest today is Johnny Beirne on You and Your Business. And we're talking about the importance of turning up professionally on Zoom meetings and other platforms like that, and how it can be done very cost effectively. But you must be prepared to learn something and get somebody like Johnny. By the way, Johnny, give our audience your contact details for those who would like to follow this up further.
Sure. Yeah. So the website is johnnybeirne.com, and Beirne is spelled Beirne. So that's Beirne. And on the website, up in the top right-hand corner, there is book a free consultation, where we can have a conversation about what your needs are, what the size of your room and the size of your budget is, and then map out what would be appropriate for you to really transform from going, as I say, to looking possibly like you're in a witness protection program, to actually transforming it to TV and almost Hollywood standard. Yeah, that's what we can talk about for sure.
I want to take this to the next level, because obviously we've limited time on the show, but I want to spend some time on this. You have a motto: say it once, sell it often. And I think this is a fantastic, which is all about online courses and the potential for people to earn passive income. Let's start to spend the rest of the show talking about that. And you have sort of a methodology of teaching this and preparing people. So take us through this.
Yeah, so Say It Once, Sell It Often is a book that's coming out, and I use the jigsaw analogy, where for a lot of people creating an online course is a puzzle. It's like a jigsaw puzzle without the box. You might get a few pieces, you're trying to put them together, you don't know where the pieces go, and you don't know what it's supposed to look like in the end. So that's why I use the jigsaw analogy, and it's covered in the book. It's a 9P framework, but fundamentally, I believe the reason people should create an online course is because they can stop trading time for money. They can have more income and more freedom with no impact on their time, of course, when they have more freedom. So Say It Once, Sell It Often, or creating an online course, is essentially taking what you already know and recording it in the form of short and to the point video lessons, and then publishing it online and picking a fair price, a price that's fair to you and your students, where they can do the course from their own place at their own pace. And you don't have to be physically present to deliver the training because it's pre-recorded. So the 9P framework, each of the 9 steps begin with the letter P. The first one is prepare, and it's really to prepare yourself for creating an online course, to think about why you're doing it, and think about your own values, and to think about how you're spending 40, 50, 60, 100 hours a week trading time for money, when in reality having an online course could transform that. So it's not about the technical when you're starting out, it's about preparing yourself to be an online course creator. And then the next part then is to plan it out. And the big part of planning for me is, particularly when people are busy giving workshops, doing public speaking, writing books, etc., to take on this additional task, it's probably the first thing they're going to stop doing. So what I would suggest is to look at your working week and see what you can stop doing. See what you can subcontract. See where you're spending time on tasks because you like doing them, but in reality you're spending too much time at them. And see where you can actually free up a little bit of time. I've seen people try and create their online course. I'll do it in the evening. The kids go to bed and I'll go back into the office, and they have, after doing a pretty long day, both in the office and then they're being the family person if they have significant others and kids and so on. And then they believe that, oh, and I can be creative and make videos at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. So I would strongly suggest to build it into the working week, treat it like a client. It will be the client that keeps on giving, but you don't have to be there in order for the income. The next one then is to pick a topic. The topic, or the way I would suggest pick a topic is, first of all, pick a topic you know the best, that you're best known for, that's a real pain point for people, and there's enough people out there to buy it, and you're passionate about the topic. So I have a very simple, non-scientific scoring matrix that I invite people to score those 4 Ps from 1 to 10. What's your positioning? How strong is the pain? How big is the market, i.e. people? And are you passionate about it? If you're not passionate about it, it will come through in your videos. The next part then is price. And what I suggest to people is pick a price that's fair to you and fair to your students. A price that, is meaningful for them. If they don't invest enough money, they won't invest enough time. If they don't pay enough, they won't pay enough attention. And therefore, price it accordingly. Price it based on the transformation and not the information. Okay, people are not buying information. There's lots of information out there. They're buying into transformation. They want a real, tangible result. Like I say to people, what will they be able to do, taste, see, or feel, or hear after they're finished? A real transformation, not a change, because a change still has residue from the past. Transformation is, there's no evidence of the past, and that's what they want to buy into and price accordingly. And ideally, they should get 10 times the return, financially or otherwise, in terms of the transformation. The next one then is prove, piece of the jigsaw, which is sell the course before you create it. Okay, how do you do that? Well, you tell your audience, your followers, your email list, that you have a course coming out in 2 to 3 weeks. And the course is how to be a better professional speaker, or how to create an online course, or how to use a green screen, or how to set up your own studio. And you say it's going to be available in 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, 3 weeks, let's say. It's going to be €295, but if you join as a pilot member, it'll be 95, and you get these bonuses, and you can sign up today, and you'll have access in 3 weeks. So you're basically signing up people before you create the course. It proves that there's a market for it. It gives you a little bit of confidence. It gives you a little bit of cash. It gives you real students to work with to give you feedback. So the whole idea is not to lock yourself away in a room and spend months doing it, but to actually test it, and you can sell it. Then we get into production, which is basically recording the studio. This is actually green, so you can see it's disappearing in the green screen. And the production is taking what we've covered already to use the equipment. The next one then, number 7, is to publish it online so the world can buy it. Number 8 is promote it, which is all about marketing. And I would suggest using webinars to market your course. And the last one then is taking the course, taking your graduates from the course and launching a membership program.
Fantastic. My goodness, so much covered in such a short space of time. Again, remind our audience where they can find out more about you, Johnny, so that they can follow this up in more detail.
Sure. So johnnybeirne.com, JohnnyBeirne. It looks like Beirne, but it's pronounced Beirne, Beirne.com. And there you can book a free consultation at a time that works for you. And we can have a simple, non-salesy conversation about either your studio or the potential for you to create an online course so that you can have more impact, income, and freedom.